Hi everyone and welcome to my brush care video, and this is more or less for the ones of you that are oil painters, because you acrylic painters will just have to use water. So this is for oil painters, and I will give you some of my tricks and tips on how I clean my brushes and how I keep them nice and tidy and protected. So let's start with the first one. The first tip, that is the most common one, is paint thinner. When I started oil painting, I had two jars. The one thing for a rough cleaning, so this one was always a very dirty one. And when I had my brush cleaned in the first jar, I put it over to the second jar to remove the final pigment particles. So the second jar, of course, stayed cleaner for much longer time than the first one, but it doesn't matter. After a while the pigments sink to the ground and you can just use a new jar, so you do not have to waste any of the solvent, which is a nice way. After a while I thought, okay, I want to try to be less chemical intense, and so I tried to find alternatives to the solvent. And actually one of the most simple ones is the linseed oil. This one comes from the grocery store. It is just regular linseed oil that you can use for your salads. And I used the very same method as for the paint thinner. I had two jars like this. This was a glass of honey. Put in the linseed oil, one glass to make the rough cleaning. This is getting dirty quite quickly, and the second jar to rinse it out even better. Then I used a paper towel, brushed it out, and everything was fine. And the good thing, the oil also protects a bit the bristles and keeps them soft and they do not break. This is a good alternative. Another plus, after some time the pigments set to the ground and you can just put it over into a next glass and use it again. Actually the very same method as for the paint thinner. But this does not smell, it is not toxic, and it feels already safer than having chemicals used. Just, of course, if you make it into a glass and have it in somewhere in your living area, write on it so that you just not accidentally use it for whatever. Safety first. Another really great working method, and this is the method I'm using nowadays, is just regular dish soap. This is Fit. We in Germany call it Fit or dish soap. Use whatever you have. This is just a cheap one and it works perfectly. What I do, I just use my regular brush, which I have used, use a paper towel, which you should always do, and remove as many of the color as possible. So just swipe it over, press it in between so that you have as much of the pigment out of your brush as possible. Then afterwards I put a tiny bit of my dish soap into my hand and just do this motion. And this will remove the particles of the pigments from your brush and you will have it in your hands. You can use a glove if you like, but I usually do not use one. So just this rinses out all the pigments from your brush. You might take 2 or 3 attempts to have it completely clean, but you will notice whenever your soap stays the color that it had in the first place, then your brush is good to go. One more thing is this one, and this is called curd soap. Yes, my translator says curd soap. This is just what it is. It is the very cheapest version to clean your brushes, as far as I know. So my opinion is this is the cheapest one, and this is my go-to version if this one is empty. I have both actually laying around in my cleaning supplies. Despite of this one, there's also something called like artist soap, which is 10 times the price as this one, and it might be better for your pencils. So I don't know, it smells the same, it feels the same as this block does, but this is way cheaper and it simply does the same thing. And so for me, why should I? So it makes no sense for me if this is costing me, I don't know, 30 cents. This kind of brush costs me 3 euros. Why should I use a soap which is on its own about 2 euros just to clean my brushes? So I think that way, if I use this way cheaper, and probably after a year it kills my pencils and it makes it, I don't know what it can do. So it can damage the hairs, I really don't know. But if I spend over a year perhaps 10 euros for a soap and it keeps my pencil for perhaps half a year longer, yeah, you can do the calculation. Whatever you prefer more. I prefer to go cheap, and if this one really dies from cleaning, I get a new brush. But as far as I can tell, none of my brushes has died so far from cleaning. None of them is crying or asking for help. I don't know. Your decision, what you like to do on your own. Another thing that you might want to do, and don't judge me on this, it might be totally wrong, and many artists out there might say, oh my god, what is he doing? This is the worst that you can do. Probably. And I feel really guilty about it. Yeah. Depending on the project that I'm working on, I do have a couple of brushes that I have used and needed. And I'm sometimes a lazy person and do not want to clean them the same day that I've worked with them. But I also do not want to have them just lying around. Although I know that the oil color doesn't really dry until the next day, I just put all my brushes heads down into a jar with some dishwashing soap. Put it into a jar and put these thingies in. I swirl them around so that everything is covered with the soap and let them stay there for the next day. This in a way pretends the oil color to dry. It in a way begins cleaning them and it doesn't hurt them. Even if it's 2 or 3 days, everything is fine. But there is a but. Never make any water into it, because if you have water into it, it will soak into the metal thingies and it gets rusty, and yeah, so just have the soap and everything will be fine. But there is a negative, which might be helpful for you as well if you have encountered this problem before, and I'm pretty sure you have if you're an artist. If you have these long bristle brushes in your jar, like this, overnight perhaps, your brushes might look like this the day after. Can you see this? So just, it is bent. And when these bristles are bent, normally they do not come back into place once they are dried. And you can do what you want. But there is a tip. It works for about 95% of my brushes. And this is, ta-da, hair gel. Simple, isn't it? Just use some tiny amount of hair gel, put it into your brush, form it into the direction that you want your bristles to be, and let it sit overnight. Next day, rinse it out and you will most probably be fine again. Before you throw them away, give it a try. If you have the event that you have left your brush out there and it began drying, or even if you're an acrylic painter and have this had before, and your color dried completely into your brush. Oh my god, worst thing ever for us artists, if color gets dried into your brush. So solid hard, nothing moves, and I need to go to the kitchen because I forgot to bring it here. Just a second. And I don't know why I did this all the time, it just, yeah. Ta-da! This is vinegar, right from the kitchen. This saved so many of my brushes, because I'm lazy, as I told before. And this is not just the vinegar that you use for your salads, which is about 5%-ish. This is it's called Essig Essence in German, which is just a more concentrated version. It has 25% acid, and this is the stuff you want to use. Just put it into a jar, put your damaged brush into it at first, and let it sit for 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever it needs. Magic happens, and most of the times this saved my brush. This brush, for example, I killed about 5 times over the last years. This is my normally gessoing brush. This is the largest one that I have, and I use it to gesso my surfaces, and gesso dries quite quickly, and oftentimes I just forgot to clean it in between. And this stuff really helped me. It works the same with acrylics, it works the same with oils. It does not work again with every kind of bristles, but most of the time it really saved my brushes. Another tip that you should consider if you have cleaned your brushes and rinsed them with water in the end. Don't put your brushes right back into its container wherever you store them like this, because the rest amount of water can soak directly into it here and does not do any good to them. Lay them flat for the next day, whatever, and once they are dried, put them back in. Also, while you're painting, and you do not need this brush in particular for a couple of minutes, don't put them into a brush holder like this, because what it does, the paint that is already into it will rinse into the end of the bristles and collect there. And this is something that happens automatically, and you will not be able to remove everything all the time. So this is a natural disease of brushes, I think, which comes with age. So the particles will collect here, they will dry and split actually your bristles up front. So this one already is a bit, if you can see. And the older your brushes are, the more of these pigments actually you will have. You might not see this in the camera, but I see that there is a tiny bit of residue here in the back end. So the more there is, the more splittier your bristles will become. So if you don't use your brush, lay it flat as well. Or get yourself a brush holder that is slightly angled like this, and you can put your brush onto it, and if something goes wrong, it rinses off. Another tip, and I think this is the last one for now, if you're painting with oil paints and you do have a couple of brushes in use, and you know that you're going to visit your parents over the weekend, and you're not at home, but you are too lazy to clean all your brushes because you know you will continue right you come back on Sunday afternoon, and you do not want to have everything cleaned the day before you leave. And this only works with oil colors that have no medium into it. So no liquid, no alkyd, no fast drying whatsoever. If you have your brush covered in paint, just dip it into some linseed oil and put it down. Best to put it down on your brush holder if you have one. Or if you don't have one, use something elevated that your bristles are hanging free in a way. And so you have a bunch of oil covering your oil color, and this will protect your oil color from drying, and it also will protect your bristles from drying out whatsoever. And when you come back after 2-3 days, I wouldn't use any more time, you can just wipe it off with a paper towel and use it again as if you were not away over the time. And this actually sums up my brush care routine. So I hope I did not miss anything of my tips. If you have any questions, or if anything was not clear what I wanted to tell you, just write me in the comments, text me on Instagram or Facebook, whatever. I'm always happy to help you or to assist with questions. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I normally do some painting tutorials, drawing tutorials, tips, tricks, techniques, some speed drawing stuff, Q&A, whatever you actually want and ask me for. And I would be happy to see you in my next video. So have a great day. Bye bye.